What if I told you that right now, under the quiet, still surface of your sleeping garden, a silent invasion is being planned? An army is waking up, and its only goal is to feast on your future flowers and fruits. Most gardeners wait until they see the damage, but by then the war is already lost. They're playing defense, but not you, not this year. In this video, I'm going to share the secrets to launching a preemptive strike. We're going to turn your garden into a fortress that pests won't even want to approach. And I promise, one of these tips is something most people have never even considered. You think you know how to prepare your garden for spring? Stick around, you might be surprised at what you're missing. So, why is early spring the golden window for pest control? It's all about understanding the enemy's life cycle. Throughout the cold winter, insects and their eggs are in a state of dormancy, kind of like a deep sleep. They're hiding in tree bark, under fallen leaves, and even in the soil itself. They are vulnerable, stationary, and concentrated in predictable places. Early spring, that period when temperatures start to rise but before the trees and plants have fully leafed out, is their wake-up call. It's also our moment to act. At this stage, we're not fighting thousands of mobile, hungry adult insects. We are targeting their eggs and overwintering forms before they even have a chance to hatch and multiply. Think of it as dealing with a single spark before it can become a wildfire. Once the leaves emerge, these pests have food, shelter, and a million places to hide. Our job becomes infinitely harder. This proactive approach is the core philosophy that separates frustrating gardening from joyful, successful gardening. First, let's talk about adopting a preemptive strike mindset. For years, the common approach to garden pests has been reactive. You see an aphid, you spray it. You find a chewed leaf, you search for the caterpillar. This is a losing battle. It's like trying to bail out a boat with a teacup while there's a huge hole in the bottom. You are constantly on the defensive, always one step behind. The secret is to shift your entire strategy from reaction to prevention. Your goal for the early spring is not to kill the pests you see, but to eliminate the 80 to 90% of the pest population you don't see. The eggs, the larvae, the pupae. You must assume they are there, waiting. Every action you take, from cleaning up debris to applying dormant sprays, is part of building layers of defense. This mindset changes everything. You stop looking for problems and start creating solutions. It transforms a chore into a strategic operation, and you are the general protecting your territory. This proactive stance not only saves your plants, but also reduces the need for harsher chemicals later in the season, creating a healthier ecosystem for you, your family, and the beneficial insects we actually want to attract. Your first physical mission is the most fundamental, a deep, thorough garden cleanup. That cozy-looking blanket of last year's leaves and fallen twigs. It's not just mulch, it's a 5-star overwintering hotel for your enemies. Aphid eggs are glued to fallen stems. Spider mites are huddled in the crevices of dead plant material. Slugs and snails have laid thousands of eggs in the damp, dark environment under old boards or pots. This is ground zero. So before you do anything else, you need to become a sanitation expert. Get your rake, gloves, and a wheelbarrow. Methodically clear away all fallen leaves, dead annuals from last season, and any rotting vegetable matter. Pay special attention to the areas around the base of your fruit trees and rose bushes, as these are prime targets. And don't just rake it into a pile in the corner. Bag it up for municipal pickup, or, if you have a properly managed hot compost pile, add it there. The heat generated during active composting, over 140 degrees Fahrenheit, will effectively cook and destroy most pests and fungal spores. This single action is the cheapest, easiest, and most impactful strike you can make. You are literally removing the enemy's barracks before the soldiers even wake up. Now let's bring in the heavy artillery of early spring, dormant oil. This isn't a poison, it's a tool of suffocation. Dormant oil, also known as horticultural oil, is a highly refined petroleum-based or vegetable-based oil that is mixed with water and an emulsifying agent. When you spray it on your dormant trees and shrubs, it creates a super-thin film that covers and smothers overwintering insects and their eggs. Imagine a tiny scale insect or an aphid egg tucked into the bark of your apple tree. It breathes through microscopic pores called spiracles. The dormant oil clogs these pores, effectively cutting off their oxygen supply. It's a purely physical mode of action, which means pests can't develop a resistance to it, unlike many chemical pesticides. This makes it an incredibly effective tool against some of the most stubborn pests, including scale insects, spider mites, aphids, mealybugs, and more. It's particularly crucial for fruit trees, which are magnets for these types of overwintering pests that can later cause devastating damage to your crop. Using dormant oil is like hitting the reset button on your orchard's pest population for the coming year. It's a clean slate. However, the power of dormant oil lies entirely in its timing. Timing is everything. If you spray too early when it's still too cold, the oil can be less effective, and you might miss pests that haven't broken dormancy yet. If you spray too late, when the leaf buds have started to open, you risk severely damaging or even killing the tender new growth. The oil that's harmless to dormant bark can be phytotoxic or poisonous to delicate new leaves, causing them to burn and die. The ideal window for application is when the temperatures are consistently above 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius and predicted to stay that way for at least 24 hours to allow the spray to dry properly. Crucially, you must do this before the buds on your trees begin to swell and show any green or silver tips. This is called the delayed dormant stage. Check the forecast. Never spray on a day when there's a risk of freezing temperatures, and avoid spraying on windy days to prevent drift or on rainy days, which will just wash the oil right off before it can do its job. Circle this period on your calendar. It's a small window of opportunity that you absolutely cannot afford to miss for effective, safe application. To effectively apply any spray, you need the right tools for the job. Don't think you can just use a simple trigger spray bottle. For dormant oil or any garden spray to work, you need complete and total coverage. You need to get the solution into every single nook and cranny of the bark, on the undersides of branches, and all the way to the tips of the twigs. This is where pests hide. For most gardeners, a 1 or 2 gallon handheld pump sprayer is perfectly adequate for shrubs, roses, and small trees. They are affordable and easy to use. For those with a larger number of trees or a small orchard, investing in a backpack sprayer is a game changer. It holds more liquid, reducing the number of times you need to stop and refill, and provides a more consistent pressure for better coverage. Whichever you choose, the key is the nozzle. You want a nozzle that can be adjusted to create a fine mist. This allows you to coat the surfaces thoroughly without causing the product to drip off wastefully. Before you start, make sure your sprayer is clean and working correctly. A clogged nozzle can turn a quick job into an afternoon of frustration. Proper equipment makes the difference between a successful treatment and a complete waste of time and product. Let's bust a common and potentially dangerous myth, the idea that all oils are the same. I've heard people suggest using motor oil or even cooking oil from the kitchen as a cheap alternative to horticultural oil. Please do not do this. It's a terrible idea that can seriously harm your plants. Horticultural and dormant oils are highly refined specifically for this purpose. They have had impurities, such as sulfur compounds that are harmful to plants, removed. They are also formulated with an emulsifier, which is a substance that allows the oil to mix with water. Without this, the oil and water would separate instantly in your sprayer, and you'd end up spraying pure water on some parts of the tree and pure, thick oil on others. This undiluted oil can be extremely phytotoxic, essentially burning the plant tissue even on dormant bark, and it will completely clog your sprayer. The viscosity, or thickness of horticultural oil is also precisely controlled to be thin enough to spray effectively, but thick enough to coat and smother the pests. Using the wrong oil is a recipe for disaster. Stick to products specifically labeled as dormant oil or horticultural oil from a reputable garden center. It's a classic case of you get what you pay for, and the health of your trees is worth the small investment. Now let's focus on a specific high-value target, your fruit trees. Apple, pear, peach, cherry, and plum trees are like a 5-star hotel and an all-you-can-eat buffet for a host of overwintering pests. If you want to enjoy a harvest that isn't riddled with worms or covered in disease, the early spring dormant spray is non-negotiable. One of the primary targets is the codling moth, whose larvae are the classic worm in the apple. The adults lay eggs, and a dormant spray can help smother any overwintering pupae or eggs. Scale insects are another major issue. These tiny armored bugs attach themselves to the bark and suck the life out of your tree, and they are almost impervious to pesticides once their waxy coating develops. Dormant oil is the perfect weapon to smother them before they wake up. Aphid eggs, which look like tiny black specks on the bark, are also a key target. Wiping out these eggs now prevents a population explosion on the tender new leaves in a few weeks. A dormant oil spray on your fruit trees is arguably the single most important preventative task you will perform all year to ensure a healthy, delicious harvest later in the summer and fall. It sets the stage for success. It's not just about the edibles. We need to protect our ornamentals, especially roses. Roses are notorious for being susceptible to a range of pests and diseases, and the battle begins now. During your garden cleanup, be ruthless with your roses. Remove every last fallen leaf from around the base of the plant. This is critical because black spot, one of the most common and damaging rose diseases, overwinters on fallen leaves. When spring rains come, the spores splash back up onto the new growth, and the cycle of infection begins all over again. A dormant oil spray is also highly beneficial for roses. It will help control overwintering spider mite eggs, which can devastate a rose bush in the summer heat, as well as scale insects that can hide along the thorny canes. For those who struggle with powdery mildew year after year, a dormant spray of lime sulfur, where it is permitted, can be an effective preventative measure to reduce the fungal spores that overwinter on the plant itself. By giving your roses this clean start in the early spring, you are drastically reducing the disease and pest pressure they will face, allowing them to put their energy into producing beautiful, healthy blooms instead of fighting for their lives. While we spend a lot of time looking up at branches, don't forget to look down. The soil itself is a massive reservoir for the next generation of pests. Many destructive insects spend their winter underground in their larval or pupal stages, just waiting for the soil to warm up. Japanese beetles, for instance, overwinter as grubs in the soil, feeding on grass roots before emerging as destructive adults. Cutworms, the bane of every vegetable gardener, hide in the soil during the day and come out at night to chew through the stems of your brand new seedlings. Your spring strategy should include a soil component. A light tilling or cultivation of your garden beds in early spring can expose many of these overwintering larvae and pupae to the air and to predators like birds, who will be more than happy to enjoy a free meal. For a more targeted organic approach, this is the perfect time to consider applying beneficial nematodes. These are microscopic soil-dwelling worms that actively hunt down and kill soil pests like fungus gnat larvae and grubs, but are completely harmless to plants, pets, and people. You are essentially releasing a microscopic army to fight the battle for you under the surface. Let's talk about one of the most versatile tools in the organic gardener's arsenal, neem oil. While it can be used as a dormant spray, its real strength is as an early-season foliar spray once the leaves begin to emerge. Neem oil is a true triple threat. First, it acts as an anti-feedant and insect growth regulator. The active ingredient, azadirachtin, makes the leaves unpalatable to chewing insects and messes with their hormonal system, preventing larvae from molting and maturing into adults. It stops the next generation in its tracks. Second, it has fungicidal properties and is effective at preventing and controlling common diseases like powdery mildew, black spot, and rust. Third, it can also help to control mites. The key to using neem oil is to start early and be consistent. Begin spraying as soon as the first leaves appear and reapply every 7 to 14 days, or after a heavy rain. It is a preventative measure, not a magical cure for a massive infestation. Make sure you purchase 100% cold-pressed neem oil, as this retains the highest concentration of the active ingredient. You'll need to mix it with a little bit of mild soap to act as an emulsifier, so it will combine with water in your sprayer. Always coat all surfaces of the leaves, including the undersides where many pests like to hide. Another excellent weapon for your organic arsenal, particularly for soft-bodied insects, is insecticidal soap. This is not the same as the dish soap in your kitchen, which we'll get to in a moment. Specially formulated insecticidal soaps are made from potassium salts of fatty acids. They work on direct contact, breaking down the waxy outer layer, or cuticle, of soft-bodied insects like aphids, mealybugs, thrips, and whiteflies. This causes them to dehydrate and die. The beauty of insecticidal soap is its targeted action and lack of residual effect. It is only effective when it is wet and directly contacts the pest. Once it dries, it is largely harmless to other insects. This makes it a great choice for dealing with an early-season aphid outbreak without harming the beneficial ladybugs and lacewings that might be arriving to prey on them. As with any spray, thorough coverage is essential. You have to hit the pests directly. This means paying close attention to the undersides of leaves and the tender new growth where aphids love to congregate. It's a fantastic, low-impact tool to have ready to go as soon as you see the first signs of these common sap-sucking pests appearing in your garden. Now, let's wade into the world of do-it-yourself solutions and debunk some myths. The internet is full of recipes for homemade pest sprays, and the most common one is a mixture of dish soap and water. While this can seem like a cheap and easy fix, it can be problematic. Modern dish soaps are detergents, not true soaps, and they contain degreasers, fragrances, and dyes that can be harmful to your plants. They can strip the waxy cuticle right off your plant's leaves, leaving them vulnerable to disease and sun scald. If you are going to make a homemade spray, use a pure castile soap, like Dr. Bronner's, which is a true soap, and much gentler on plants. Other DIY concoctions, like garlic or hot pepper sprays, can act as repellents, but they need to be reapplied frequently, especially after rain, and are not effective against all pests. The bottom line is this. While some DIY solutions can have a place for small-scale temporary problems, they are often less effective and potentially more harmful than a properly formulated, tested and approved product, like commercial insecticidal soap or horticultural oil. Know the risks before you start spraying your kitchen cleaner on your prize-winning tomatoes. Instead of focusing solely on what to kill, let's focus on who to invite to the party. I'm talking about beneficial insects. Your garden should be a battleground, and you need to recruit allies. Ladybugs, lacewings, hoverflies, and parasitic wasps are voracious predators of common garden pests like aphids and mites. The key is to attract them to your garden early in the season so they are present and waiting when the pest populations start to build. You can do this by planting a diverse range of flowers that provide the nectar and pollen these adult beneficials need to survive and reproduce. Plants in the carrot family, like dill, fennel, and cilantro, and in the daisy family, like cosmos and chamomile, are excellent choices. Let a few of them go to flower. Creating this habitat early on establishes your garden as a desirable home for these good guys. You can even purchase ladybugs or lacewing eggs from garden suppliers to release in your garden for a population boost, but they won't stick around if you don't provide them with the food and shelter they need. A garden that is friendly to beneficial insects is a garden that can, in large part, manage its own pest problems. It's the ultimate sustainable pest control. Sometimes the best defense is a simple physical one. Let me introduce you to floating row covers. This is a lightweight, spun-bonded fabric that you drape over your plants, either directly or on hoops, to create a physical barrier between the plant and the pest. It's like putting a protective screen over your crops. The material is light enough that it doesn't harm the plants, and it allows sunlight, air, and water to penetrate, but it is a fortress against many flying and crawling pests. This is an incredibly effective strategy for protecting young vegetable seedlings in the early spring. It's perfect for crops in the cabbage family, like broccoli and kale, to prevent cabbage moths from laying their eggs on the leaves. It also works wonders against flea beetles on eggplants, squash bugs on zucchini, and cucumber beetles on cucumbers. The key is to install the cover immediately after planting or seeding, before the pests have found your plants. Make sure to seal the edges securely with soil, rocks, or pins so that nothing can crawl underneath. You will need to remove the covers from crops that require pollination by insects, like squash, once they begin to flower. But for many crops, it's a simple, chemical-free way to guarantee a pest-free start. Don't underestimate the role of your pruning shears in pest and disease prevention. Strategic pruning in the late winter or very early spring does more than just shape your plants. It creates a less hospitable environment for problems. The primary goal of preventative pruning is to improve air circulation. When branches are crowded and dense, it traps moisture and humidity after a rain or morning dew. This damp, stagnant environment is the perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases like powdery mildew, black spot, and rust. By thinning out the canopy and removing crossing branches, you allow air and sunlight to penetrate the entire plant, which helps the leaves dry out much more quickly. This simple act makes it significantly harder for fungal spores to germinate and take hold. Pruning is also your chance to perform surgery. Carefully inspect your trees and shrubs for any wood that looks diseased, damaged, or infested. Remove and destroy any branches that have signs of cankers, galls, or clusters of insect eggs. This removes a source of infection and pests before they have a chance to spread to the rest of the plant in the spring. As your garden begins to wake up, you need to become a vigilant detective. Make a habit of walking through your garden every few days with the specific intention of looking for trouble. Early pest identification is critical. The sooner you spot a problem, the easier it is to deal with. Don't just glance at your plants, get up close. Look at the undersides of leaves, as this is where many pests like aphids, spider mites, and whiteflies hide. What are you looking for? Learn to read the signs. Tiny pale dots on the leaves, a phenomenon called stippling, is a classic sign of spider mites. A clear, sticky substance on leaves called honeydew is the excrement of sap-sucking insects like aphids or scale, and it often leads to a secondary problem of sooty mold. Tiny, delicate webs are another hallmark of spider mites. Curled or distorted new growth is often a sign of an aphid infestation at the growing tip. By catching these signs when it's just a few leaves or one small branch affected, you can often solve the problem by simply pruning it off or using a targeted spray of insecticidal soap. Waiting until the whole plant is covered is a much bigger, more difficult fight. You can't control the weather, but you absolutely must pay attention to it, as it has a massive impact on pest and disease pressure. The weather factor can change your entire game plan. For example, a particularly mild winter often means that a larger percentage of the overwintering pest population has survived. In these years, you need to be extra vigilant and diligent with your dormant sprays, because you're starting the season with a higher baseline number of enemies. On the other hand, a very cold, harsh winter can provide some natural pest control for you. A wet, cool spring is a recipe for fungal diseases like blight and black spot, as well as an explosion in the slug and snail population. In a year with these conditions, you need to prioritize good air circulation through pruning and perhaps use preventative organic fungicide sprays. A hot, dry spring will put stress on your plants, making them more vulnerable to pests like spider mites, which thrive in those conditions. A smart gardener is an adaptable gardener. You don't just follow a rigid schedule, you observe the conditions of the current season and adjust your strategies accordingly to anticipate the most likely threats. Finally, to truly master proactive pest management, you need to create a simple pest management calendar or schedule. This doesn't have to be complicated. It's not about creating a rigid, unforgiving set of rules. Instead, it's about turning these tasks into a routine so they don't get forgotten in the rush of the spring season. Your calendar can be based on phenology, which is using natural cues. For example, apply dormant oil when the forsythia bushes start to bloom. This is often a more accurate indicator of the right conditions than a specific calendar date. Your schedule should include reminders: mid-March, garden cleanup and dormant spray. April, check for aphid outbreaks on new growth. Early May, put down row covers on new vegetable seedlings. Having a plan transforms your approach from a chaotic reaction to an orderly, thoughtful process. It ensures you perform the right tasks at the right time, year after year. Consistency is the ultimate secret weapon. Pest control isn't a single event. It's a series of small, strategic actions taken throughout the season, and it all starts with this critical work in the early spring. Your future, successful self will thank you for the planning you do now. So there you have it. The silent war in your garden is real, but now you are armed with the strategy to win. The single most important takeaway is the shift in mindset, from reacting to problems to proactively preventing them. It's about understanding that the battle is won or lost before you ever see a single pest on a leaf. It's won in the cleanup, in the precise timing of a dormant oil spray, and in creating an environment that favors your plants and their beneficial allies. Perhaps the most surprising turn is that your most powerful tools aren't harsh chemicals, but a rake, a pair of pruning shears, and careful observation. You are no longer just a gardener, you are the guardian of your garden's ecosystem. Thank you so much for watching and for investing the time to become a more strategic gardener. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content just like this. And now I have a question for you. What is the #1 pest you struggle with in your garden every single spring? Let me know in the comments below. Let's share our experiences and help each other out.